Hello everyone, and welcome to the session Application Migration at Scale, which is a part of the AWS Innovate online conference. My name is Vijay Rangarajan, and I work as a senior cloud architect with the AWS Professional Services team based out of Singapore. In this session, I shall be talking about large-scale application migration based on our experience of performing complex enterprise transformation with one prime objective, which is to help you learn about our proven migration patterns, methods and tools which helps you to accelerate your migrations, reduce risks and quickly realize value. So let's begin by talking about why enterprises are migrating to the cloud today. Every enterprise has their own unique blend of drivers to move to the cloud, and some of the common ones that we see is to increase agility. Some of our customers are creating new business cases where they believe their workforce productivity can be improved anywhere between 30 to 70% as a result of migrating their applications to the cloud. We also see a lot of data center consolidation or rationalization of projects, especially if the enterprises have been really acquisitive and have experienced a large infrastructure sprawl in the recent years. We also see a lot of companies looking completely redefining their businesses using modern technology as a part of their larger digital transformation program. And of course, any cost-conscious enterprises are always looking ways to improve their bottom line by reducing cost. And while these enterprises are becoming increasingly motivated to migrate to realize these benefits, let's not forget they all had to deal with a lot of challenges. So let's look at some of them. We have considered various challenges that enterprises face during migration. The first one and the biggest one is security, until recently, but no longer the case technically. It was more due to the lack of control and other psychological factors. Customers have realized today that cloud offers them a better security profile than what they've been used to running in their on-premise infrastructure, and we are seeing a big shift in security-related conversations where the conversations have shifted from why cloud to why not cloud. Ineffective asset management is another common issue, as there are so many unknown assets in the current world and organizations have no clue of where and what it does. Another challenge is around complexity of applications, which were either developed over time to meet different business needs or which were acquired as a part of companies' mergers and acquisitions. Lack of knowledge, operational readiness and training to support neo cloud technologies is another big challenge, as all these affects migration. AWS Professional Services, along with key select APN partners, are helping enterprises in their migration journey. And many enterprises have experienced multiple benefits driven by their specific business objectives. Now, these are few of the examples of the business benefits that enterprises have experienced from large-scale cloud migrations. All these enterprises enjoy the low-cost consumption model and dynamic flexibility operating from the cloud. Many enterprises, such as Kaplan, have further increased the savings by exiting data centers and avoiding further capital investments. We also see a big shift even in enterprises such as News, who have accelerated their innovation cycles by 6 months by deploying an accelerated application lifecycle. And GE, today, who have migrated 300 plus apps in 1 year, have made a significant savings of over 14 million and above. Based on our experience of guiding enterprises of complex transformation, we have identified a pattern as shown here, which is called the stages of adoption. In the project phase, enterprises are running cloud projects on an individual basis to experience the benefits from the cloud. Cloud is evaluated and vetted on a project-by-project basis. After experiencing the benefits from the cloud, enterprises then build the foundation to scale the cloud adoption. This includes extending their on-premise current infrastructure into the cloud and running it in a hybrid IT world to test their operational readiness and by running some development and test workloads. Once cloud becomes a proven choice, it's often used for new projects. And this is where enterprises then start to migrate their existing applications, including mission-critical applications like Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, and many more, or entire data centers to the cloud as they look to scale their adoption across a growing portion of their IT portfolio. And finally, in the last stage, with the operations in the cloud, enterprises focus on reinvention, taking advantage of the flexibility and the capabilities of AWS to transform their businesses, speeding time to market and innovation. Cloud adoption is a journey, and it relies on proper strategy, planning, and a roadmap to achieve your business outcomes. This journey can be very disruptive and will drive a significant change across the organization. Every journey to the cloud is different. That is, if you are driven by a cost pressure, your journey would be completely different to that of an enterprise who is focused on innovation. So you must be wondering how this journey would look like. Broadly speaking, the migration journey consists of three distinctive phases: assessment phase, preparation phase, and the execution phase, along with the required controls in place to develop an efficient and effective migration approach. The first two phases are called the planning phase and is purely focused on the migration readiness and planning. This phase helps you to build enterprise capabilities to migrate and operate in the cloud by focusing on the operational readiness and building a strong migration plan with a compelling business case. At the end of the planning phase, you have a clear visibility to make an executive decision to proceed to the next phase to execute migrations. We have noticed that enterprises who have followed this approach are clearly seeing tremendous potential of the cloud and are able to accelerate their migration pace quickly. Now, let's dive deep and take a microscopic view of these phases. The first phase, planning is everything. Why? Because this sets your journey. This is where enterprises start to build the foundation for the cloud journey. The aim here is to focus on what's in your current environment, what are the interdependencies, what to migrate, and how to migrate. In this phase, we've usually seen enterprises start to plan by leveraging AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, or CAF, to assess the current maturity across the organization, which covers over multiple work streams like finding out the current maturity and to build a business case. Transformation by way of cloud adoption will require maturity across a spectrum of areas beyond technology. And this is where CAF plays an important role. The AWS CAF is a simple and agile process to achieve sustainable business value with AWS Cloud Services. CAF provides a balanced approach to transformation and the levers of maturity that will need to be pulled in order to be successful. This helps enterprises in organizing the planning cycle and aligning with the cloud strategy to the business outcomes, and importantly drives your cloud adoption process. For example, CAF will help you answer questions like, what will your cloud migration and steady state teams look like? What skills and capabilities are required to support the new technology? How will you track and manage and define new products and services that are new to the cloud? Have risk profiles be documented for key applications? AWS CAF also perform a maturity across your organization, and enterprises use these results to identify the gap in their maturity, which are addressed either as an activity during the migration or prior to commencing the migration. Once you've gone past, the next step is to build a business case. And in order to build one, you will need to have a good knowledge of how things are done today. You will need to have a good understanding of the current application portfolio and the current corresponding business value. Like, you need to understand, like, does this application generate revenue? Does this application bring in a differentiated service to my business? And if you do not know, think about the impact of and the cost of not having this application in your business portfolio. This is required to ensure that you have a directional cost validation based on your super high level understanding of the business goals and portfolio. Once you have the business case defined, the next step is to perform a portfolio discovery. This is where you start to explore the current state of your IT portfolio to address some questions like, what's in your environment? What are my interdependencies? What will you migrate first, and how will you migrate it? And remember, there are so many unknown resources that exist in the current world. So it's very important for you to perform portfolio discovery. So how do you do it? This is when enterprises typically inspect their configuration management databases or CMDBs, their current assets, institutional knowledge, and deploy the tool of choice to do so, which they are heavily invested in. Or they can use services like AWS Application Discovery Services to deeply understand what's in the current environment. Using this knowledge, the enterprises can outline a plan which should be considered subject to change as they progress through the migration and learn on how they will approach migrating each application in the portfolio and in what order. In short, the portfolio discovery helps you to list all your IT assets, identify your upward and downward dependencies, and a migration plan and resources that are required to support during and post migration, in addition to the cost model and the business value that you want to achieve. Another important aspect at this stage is to perform your application portfolio assessment and to start considering your target end state, and then explore the feature that the new platform offers. We recommend enterprises strive quickly to understand which applications are cloud eligible, cloud friendly, and cloud native before, and then execute a deep dive analysis on just the subset of applications which they're willing to migrate. This assessment could be done starting with something on the low complexity end of the spectrum for obvious reason. That is, it will be easier to complete, which will give you some immediate positive reinforcement or quick wins as you learn. And the next thing is to do an initial assessment. And one of the outcomes of an initial assessment is to derive a heat map of your current IT portfolio. That is, you will need to perform a portfolio assessment based on each application and perform due diligence on a couple of things like cloud compatibility, licensing model, compliance requirements, and especially if you're operating in a highly regulated industries. And also need to check for the upward and the downward dependencies, and then bubble sort the individual apps as per your business requirements. Once the applications have been bucketed based on the characteristics, these applications should then be prioritized for migration teams to start migration process to the AWS Cloud immediately. For example, you could perform a technical assessment of your current portfolio and look out for applications which are running on bare metal, non-x86 workloads like AIX, mainframe, Spark, and move them to the bottom of your list as they need a lot of time to assess and plan prior to the migration. You could also look out for systems which are like already virtualized, running in well-defined boundaries and have known dependencies and have a good cloud licensing model because they could be easier to move. The other approaches are to look at applications which are horizontally scalable, which have a good reputation of moving to the cloud. And most newer applications have microservices architecture and an API first design, which could be potentially your migration candidates. This just-in-time approach enables the migration teams to leverage on their ongoing migration experiences and to provide validated insights back to the portfolio analysis team for more precise application selections during future iterations. The main point here is that you will have a clear visibility with your quick wins and the hard ones to migrate, which are driven by your technical and business appetite. Now let's look at the 6 migration strategies. The 6 most common application migration strategies which we see are, first one is rehost. This is pure lift and shift, and this is used for net new applications. We have found that customers use this migration type for early projects and applications which are easier to optimize and re-architect once they're already running in the cloud. Replatform is another one. This is like lift, tinker, and shift. Here you might make fewer or other optimizations in order to achieve some tangible benefits, but otherwise you're not changing the core architecture of your application, like reducing time to spend on database or application servers. And maybe you can start to explore relational database services or RDS or like Elastic Beanstalk. The next one is repurchase. This is where you're moving from one platform to a different platform, commonly seen as repurchasing, right? So if you've been running CRM, you're trying to move away from your CRM systems to salesforce.com. Or if you're running HR-based systems, you're moving to Workday and so on. Refactor and re-architect is pretty much redeploying your applications using cloud-native ways. This is how applications is re-architected and developed using the new world, and this is typically driven by a strong business need to add features, scale, or performance that otherwise would be very difficult to achieve in the application's existing environment. Of course, there are two more strategies like retire, which is get rid of it, or which can be simply turned off, which once you migrate it to the cloud. Or there are some applications like non-x86 workloads which you retain, which you revisit later and do nothing for now. But one thing you'll have to remember is the complexity of migrating the existing application varies depending on the architecture and existing license agreement, which you will have to cater to. Now that you've seen the 6 strategies, I'm sure you're starting to weigh the pros and cons of each. At the end of the day, no matter which option you choose, this boils down to 3 things: the time, the cost, and the agility. Ordering an application migration is dependent on your business needs. This is where the data gathered from the discovery is crucial, because you may decide to migrate based on complexity. Because lift and shift is the simplest strategy, it may have a higher priority. Regardless, this is where you get the final list of applications and what will move on and when. From our experience, we've seen that about 70% of the migration falls either into rehost or replatform. Now, at this stage, you have a complete visibility of your application portfolio and have identified your low-hanging fruits, and you're all set to migrate your applications to the cloud. This is the third phase called the execution phase, and this is exactly where we start to begin to migrate the applications. So how do we do it? AWS Migration Framework. So what is AWS Migration Framework? This is a combination of what we at AWS know about technology migration based on our experience of helping enterprises migrate their IT portfolios to AWS. This process is intended to provide some guiding principles to the customer approach for their migration. And I repeat, this does not intend to prescribe hard and fast rules. Every organization has its unique blend of constraints, budgets, issues, politics, culture, and market pressures that will guide its decision-making process along the way. AWS Migration Framework is all about continual consistency, repeatability, streamlining workflows, and most importantly, ensuring standardization, which you will continually iterate with the help of a migration factory until you hit a sweet spot. So what is this migration factory all about? This migration factory is where the actual migrations are done. This is where the focus of the migration moves from a portfolio level to an individual application level, where each application is designed, migrated, and validated according to one of the 6 migration strategies. Let's look at the design phase. What does the design phase do? This is where you're taking the sets of applications and fitting them into your target design patterns and planning the execution of the migration into the cloud. The build phase is actually you're migrating the application into the respective design pattern. Integrate and validate is where you perform your multiple acceptance criteria tests, like user acceptance tests, functional acceptance tests, and ensure that all the criterions are met before the applications are cut over. And once migrated, you will then move into the optimize phase. This is where all the resulting applications are moved into the cloud, which then become a part of the growing set of applications into the new operating model pool. And this cycle is repeated with more and more apps joining the output pool until it complete. So if you have about 400 applications, you do this 400 times. The application migration factory helps to lay a robust foundation for a well-oiled pipeline which eventually helps you to accelerate migrations. So how do you do it? We highly recommend to use an agile methodology that allows you to learn and iterate as you migrate workloads. For example, in this scenario, we start with one application, and with each sprint it progresses through the migration process. We are applying the learnings back into the process for subsequent applications in the subsequent sprints. And once fully migrated, we will then need to take into considerations the operational impacts and provide continual feedback loop to increase the velocity of the migrations. And this requires a specialist team focused on specific activities and is dependent on your application factory model. The key takeaway of this slide is automation, guys. That is, automate as much as possible. So how do you build this application migration factory? Well, from our experience, we've seen it can be built in two ways. The workload-oriented way. In this model, the members of the team perform everything. They're completely involved throughout your migration cycle. That means they're involved right from the assessment, preparation, and they're involved all the way up to the migration phase. Or the activity model. Here you have specialized resources who are focused on performing specific migration tasks. These resources are pulled as on needed basis, like a dedicated team, just to perform portfolio discovery. They just come in, discover, and then hand it off to lift and shift operations team or rehost teams where these resources will be completely involved to migrate your workload based on a specific migration option. Now that I've said enough about migrations, let's look at an actual customer experience to put this into perspective. GE Oil and Gas is one of the engagements that we're currently working with, and they had clearly defined the business case and the critical success factors which are outlined in the 5 tabs, which had to be delivered as a part of the large-scale migration. During the entire migration, they kept tabs on each of these drivers as they continued their migration path. Over time, we have not only helped them save over 21 million by migrating 300 plus applications in a year, but we are also able to make them more agile. They are able to now go 77% faster to deliver to the business. We are able to reduce the technical debt much quicker and also manage to reduce 98% of high severity incidents, which overall improve their application and performance. In addition, we were also able to save them 52% on the TCS savings, which kind of improved their workforce productivity by shifting to a self-service culture. And this is exactly what a large-scale migration can help you achieve. I'm sure you're all excited now to execute a large-scale migration, but you will need to gain a lot of experience. And one way to achieve is to leverage on tools and best practices which can help you to get there quicker. So now let's look at some of them. You will definitely need some migration tools. There are lots of tools that are available to perform migrations. AWS offers some native ones like VM import, which helps you to move the VM back and forth from your data centers to the cloud, or server migration services in the newer one, which helps you to migrate your existing virtualized applications to the cloud. Or database migration service, which will help you to migrate databases from on-premise and cloud, and new services like Snowball, Snowball Edge, and Snow Mobile, which helps you to move large amounts of data up to exabytes scalable to the cloud. In addition, you can also leverage AWS Marketplace and choose from a wide technology of platform tools to perform your migration, as we know that every organization is heavily invested in their ecosystem of tool sets. Now let's look at some of the other best practices which you need to consider during migrations. Best practice number 1, always analyze your total cost of ownership. It's very important to know your cost. Why? Most organizations today perform total cost of ownership calculations, but unfortunately do not know the TCO of an individual app is, because somebody in the IT team is cutting a big fat check earlier in the past. You will also need to do this at individual application level, because it is very important to take into consideration all the direct and the indirect costs such as power, cooling, real estate, as this will give you an idea of what it's going to cost in the new world. And not just that, it also helps you to drive your ROI and other critical success factors. Best practice number 2, pick your low-hanging fruits. What I mean is, pick the ones which are easy to migrate. And some of them could be like standalone applications, which are easy to move, and should something go wrong, you could revert them with ease. The other good ones could be loosely coupled applications, right? But do watch out for like the exotic ones, like the 16-bit, 32-bit, non-x86 workloads, multicast cluster systems, and other highly engineered systems, as they require a lot of planning, prior execution. So highly recommend them to move them to the bottom of the stack. Tip number 3, get your hands dirty. I would like to re-emphasize, investing into migration pilots will not only help you to answer tons of questions and build support within the organization, but will also help you to provide a vital learning and act as a valuable point of reference of what is possible and what's not. And not just that, it also provides you a correct estimation of the migration and operational cost. And most importantly, guys, remember, there is no compression algorithm for experience. That is, there are no shortcuts when it comes to migration. You will have to experience it the right way. Best practice number 4, accelerate your migrations. That is, you need to adopt an agile approach with time-based sprints to move from a minimal viable product and to be agile to accelerate, which you can by starting small, learning and adapting to iterate and scale, which helps you to realize value and gain confidence. And investing in upskilling your resource is another super thing, because it ensures that they have the adequate skills to support the new technology, which also helps to accelerate the learnings. So let's look at some of the key takeaways of this presentation, right? Firstly, address your maturity gaps, which are identified by the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. Address them either as an activity within your migration or prior to commencing your migration. Please do not leave it until after the migration. Automate, automate, automate. Initially, you need to know how to do things manually for best practices, but after that, automate everything that you can where possible. Build migration playbooks so that you can capture the lessons learned and foster good knowledge management. Why? This will help you to make your subsequent migrations easier. Most importantly, bring in your SWAT team, not the people that are on the bench. Handpick your first applications, bring in the best team, nail the migration, and most importantly, communicate the wins back to the wider IT team and business. Moving to the cloud is not enough. Why? Because you will need to build a plan around application modernization to take complete advantage of the features of the cloud. And last but not the least, and most importantly, please engage AWS Professional Services and partners early in the process and keep them involved throughout the process. As I conclude, guys, please remember that migration is a part of the larger IT transformation framework. Migration is hard, but the reward is huge. And most importantly, focus on your migration automation and business processes, and please do not try to hug your servers. Additional resources. If after today, if you're wanting to take advantage of your AWS knowledge to the next level, you have several options available to you. To gain more confidence and hands-on experience with AWS, watch our instructional videos and explore self-paced labs. Additionally, you can attend our instructor-led classes by your qualified AWS instructors. And finally, do not forget to validate your technical expertise with AWS and use practice exams to help you prepare for your AWS certification. You can get more info on all the 3 options at aws.amazon.com/training. Finally, I would like to thank you for attending and sticking it out until the very end of the presentation. And please do not forget to complete the overall event survey. Thank you.